yes, to answer your question, there's some truth to that sometimes we don't identify them quickly enough. But I also think it's important if you research the roadmap into special ed. Special ed as it exists in the United States now was not what it was intended to ever be. It was intended to be a short-term intervention. It wasn't like Jason was talking about that parents don't want their kids to get off an IEP, but an IEP was really designed, I'm gonna help you, I'm gonna give you these tools, and then go forth. It's like, think of it, you have an infection, you take an antibiotic, you're not designed to take the antibiotic forever, you're gonna get better, and that was, it was supposed to be, and there are some, obviously, they're gonna need it lifelong, depending on their needs. But I think that's true, and that is, to my experience, been one of the hardest things, is that we have to wait till they get so far, and we try so many things before. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that an IEP is not the end-all, be-all either. And there is some research, well, actually a lot of research that comes out that we really should be doing everything we can to keep them with their gen ed peers in that setting and keep them, because they will learn from their peers. And so, but I do agree with you in your observations that sometimes it takes a long time. The other thing that I noticed in the districts that I have been in, and I've been in several, we also offer response to intervention very heavily at the elementary school. So they have a reading specialist, a math specialist, and they get pull out. These are not special ed. These are tiered supports. They do not have an IEP. And then the older they get, the fewer those things are available. And so there's an issue there as well. And you can see that part of this is logically funding. Your districts are being asked to do so much. I have a background in administration as well, and I wrote grants for a district, and I'm telling you, there was a time in my career, friends, where we were budgeted reams of paper per staff member. This is all you get for the rest of the year. And so let alone providing extra services. So I have always teach my students in the MSW program in the school social work, please walk that fine line carefully. Don't throw a district or a teacher under the bus. I know you're advocating for kids, but they are doing so much with so little funding. And there's a huge discrepancy among communities. I mean, I'm sure you've talked about that in classes. It's very interesting to me looking at some students, and they're talking about that what they have their student to teacher ratio. I just saw this, I don't know if you guys talked about this in class, about the top performing elementary schools in the state of Michigan, and the average teacher to student ratio was 1 to 15. And from the districts that I come from, they would, of course you're gonna have better scores when you have 15 kids as opposed to 28. I mean, that's I'm not great at math, I'm a social worker, but I can figure that out. And so, but I agree with you. I don't know that there's a quick answer for that. I mean, I think it's tough.
I think the answer to that question is going to be dependent on what level you work at. If you work at an elementary school, of course you're gonna think that elementary school does the front, right? If you work at a high school, you might feel a little bit differently. And we can all agree that early intervention is key, right? Early intervention, we all know, everyone's shaking their head, they're like, yeah, they keep telling us that, it's true, right? Early intervention is key. But I think the difference is each phase, you've got preschool, elementary school, middle, high, and post-secondary. Each phase is kind of focused on something different, right? And what I mean by that is in elementary school, you're learning to read, right? You're learning I before E and consonant vowels and blah, blah, blah. And you're learning to read, but once you transition to upper L in middle school, you stop learning to read and you start reading to learn, right? And so you're working on a different set of skills. So yes, the early intervention is key, but there is also that transition to what your focus is on now. I work with 6th graders, and we don't focus on how to, add and subtract 3-digit numbers and multiply, right? Because I much rather have them have the ability to read the story problem and comprehend what it's asking you to do, and then figure out and tell me what operation needs to happen. You walk down to the gas station, they got Takis, 2 for $5. You only have $4. How many bags of Takis can you buy and how much change you gonna have? It's a practical life skill, right? So it's a different frame of mind as a teacher, and I've done elementary and secondary, and it's just a different frame of mind of what you're focusing on. So it's not that any one level is necessarily lifting more weight than the other. It's just what they're focusing on. You know, elementary does get a lot more of the resources in terms of interventions and all those different tiers. High school gets a lot of resources when it comes to graduation rates and career readiness and stuff, and middle school gets shafted. But that's just how I feel. But that's just because I work in a middle school, right? And so I think the difference is what you're focusing on and what those goals are. Now, you also have to keep in mind when you're working with special education students, you know, for example, I work with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, but some of them are still learning and functioning as if they're 2nd and 3rd graders. So, yeah, I mean, I'm still helping Johnny learn how to write his name. That's something he should have learned in kindergarten, 1st grade, right? So, even though and that's not the case for all the students, right? But you have to keep in mind that we're really working in tandem with each other. I sat in transition meetings for an entire day on Thursday with the 5th grade teachers talking about what they're doing in 5th grade and what I can do with them in 6th grade and how we can work together and do that. So elementary school, yes, they do a lot there, you know, and there's a lot of overt, you know, just content, just throwing at the kids. Whereas I would feel in middle school and secondary in general, there's a lot of that hidden curriculum. And what I mean by hidden curriculum is you're not only teaching them the content, but you're teaching them how to be a human being. You know, and I mean, they do that in elementary school too, obviously, you know, they're teaching them, you know, but they overtly teach them how to be a human being. We at the secondary level, we have to not only model them, but we have to overly Germanicize how to be a decent human being on top of the curriculum and all the other stuff. So I think every level is carrying a lot of weight, it's just their focus is different.
So I had a kid today, and I got grayer, I think, as the hour went on. And I can't help but, I don't want to say blame the elementary, because I know what we're dealing with, but the kid that I was working with today, 15 years old, it was X minus 2 is 4, and it was like nothing, and so automatically I'm going, what did you do in elementary? How did you get this far? That's a natural question that special ed teachers ask, and even maybe Jenna, when you'll start seeing a lot of your kids, they will write. How many English majors? These kids are going to write the way they text. And so you're gonna have to go back to where does the period go? Where does the capital letter go? And then we're seeing a lot of kids that are not putting the word capital I, they're going lowercase I throughout their whole papers. So there's a lot of different things, but the one big piece of information we forget is home. These parents don't care. And that's the frustrating part. Starts at home. And so I'm thinking back to mine, like I said, I have a sophomore and I got a 6th grader. And it, you know, obviously it starts with stock. And then from there it starts with books and simply talking. And then from there it's what's 2 plus 2 on the way to daycare? What's 4 times 4 at the breakfast table? And then it's how was your day? Tell me about this or that or what. So it's a lot of talking. And then those are your, you know, obviously then those are the kids that do okay. But back to the matter, you know, we're getting kids that these parents, they're shoving them to us because they don't want to have them home. I mean, they got free daycare from 8:10. My schedule's 8:10 to 3:01. They got free daycare. So then we'll call home. This high school, you speak for the middle. We'll call home and like, okay, this kid did this or this kid's puking. I'm not coming to get him. I'm at work, or I'm not coming to get him because I don't want him to get this, that, or whatnot sick there. So the kid lays, you know, fetal position in the office for the rest of the day, and it's like, so we deal with that as well. But back to the matter, usually those kids are diagnosed early on, and so what I'm seeing is we get kids and people are like, oh, let's look at an IEP in high school, and I'm going, if they're not diagnosed by 4th grade, 5th grade, they're probably not gonna qualify. And so it comes down to lazy, like my neighbor, I don't know them well enough yet, and then I'll be done with this tangent a little bit. I'm team teaching in a math class, and the kid's like this, during the whole lecture, and so here comes another team taught thing. I'm looking at it as, should I say something because I'm the team teacher? But then I'm also looking at it as, I know from past experience that this particular gen ed teacher, that's his weak area. So I could model for him, but he's done this enough, so I keep fighting with myself in my head. Dude, you gotta, if that's what you wanna do. So then the gen ed teachers are, I'm putting myself in their shoes, and again, all gen ed teachers, because the phones are gonna continue to be a huge issue. Could the gen ed teacher be thinking, I'm doing what I'm doing, I'm teaching what I'm teaching, the kids that wanna learn are learning. This kid doesn't wanna learn, he fails my class, he takes it again, who cares? Now that's not the attitude you want, but I wanted to say something to this kid, but I'm sitting there fighting with myself going, and we had a math test today, and I guarantee ya, that kid's sitting at a 35 or 40 because I never seen him pick a pencil once. So it's a big.
I'm sure some of your Ferris classes don't feel a whole lot different than what you just described, because I'm a professor here, and I teach I was at the master's level for a long time, but I'm teaching 100 level classes now, and I've learned that
It's an addiction.
comes to college with them too. So I see it in my classroom here on the campus.
Just on that point, I also do the structured learning assistance math workshops at Ferris. And so the anecdote for the math problem specifically, there are kids in college level that show that sort of understanding of math. And at that point, I mean, I'm just a workshop, I'm not even a teacher. So I want to help them, but they don't even want to give me their time to really get into it. And the phone thing. So if they're coming to college like that,
Yeah, it's
we
bad.
need.
Well, and
I agree.
certainly you guys know this. I have my son is a sophomore up at Michigan Tech, and we've talked about this. COVID's really set us back, right? I mean, in education in general, all the way up K through the collegiate level, and it's going to take us some time to recoup. And I do think we have to offer. I try to offer my students grace and understanding that some of them don't have some of the basic skills. I will share with you today. I had a student email me today, and yelled at me in email, all capital letters, and I'm just like, I cannot fathom sending somebody an email where I'm yelling at a professor, and I just have to take a step back and like, okay. But it's very interesting. But I do echo what Jason said. Friends, the breakdown in the family unit in our country is tremendous. And that goes back to, if you have an opportunity, there are a lot of free trainings online. I teach my master's students this, that are correspondence, but you can read and you can learn, devour trauma-informed education and skills, because these kids are coming in and you're gonna get frustrated because they don't wanna read with you or they can't do the math, but they didn't eat breakfast. And they have no idea who's going to be in that home when they get home, what kind of violence is going to be in there. I have filed hundreds of CPS referrals in my career. It is awful, but it's part of education now. And so I do want you to don't give up, because I look at my students. Tonight I have class. They know I'm logging on when we're done here, but I have my school social work master's class tonight, and I'm so blessed because I have 17 very capable students that want to go out into and do this job, and it is a hard job. And I'm thankful for all of you for wanting to go into education, because there are people, as Jason said, that are leaving the field of education, not just because of the conditions, but as you all are aware, we have a lot of people in government that want to tell you how to do your job, and they've never done your job before. And so there's a lot that goes with it, but don't give up, because your warm smile, that light bulb moment, it might just be the reason that these young people keep going and they don't give up. But it's hard to learn when you're hungry. It's hard to learn when you're cold. Speaking of cold, it's freezing in here.
I'm sweating, I'm scared. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, Okay, they're gonna be the last one.
Okay.